tell you the story about my '04 Gen 2 996. This is not the first 996 that I acquired. I'll show you that in the garage. Last year I was looking for a Gen 1 Aero Kit 996, first year 1999. Of course I put an ad on the Instagram, wanted, and I got a message from a guy who said, hey, I know this is not what you're looking for, but I will almost give it to you. And I said, well, what does almost give it to me mean? How much is it? And he said, it's $5,000. I said, does it run? He said, yes. I said, tell me honestly, what does it need mechanically? He said, nothing. He said, cosmetically, it's a little bit rough. It's been resprayed in the original slate gray paint, but he'd just done some suspension upgrades and an exhaust modification. I said, you know what, I'll buy it. The funny part to the story is when I got it, the car actually drove surprisingly well. And my girlfriend Hannah said, well, how many miles are on it? I said, you know what? I didn't even look and I didn't even ask him. It was a $5,000 slate gray 996. So just goes to show maybe this was the bargain of the year, but there are $5,000 996s out there. I know this because that's what I paid for this one. Let me show you the first 996 that I actually acquired. My first Vasica-cooled, or as we would say, water-cooled 911. It's right there. It's an '04 GT3. I acquired that car in 2016. I was late to the GT3 game, but I've driven a lot of them. I've actually driven every variation from the 996 GT3 RS all the way up to the current one. And one of my favorites is the 996 GT3. Perhaps my number one favorite is 996 GT3 RS. My car's an '04 Gen 2. Obviously you can tell that by the headlights. When I got it, I bought it from a guy in Northern California. I had my buddies at Sharkworks check it out because they really know the way around 996 GT3s. They know how to make them go really fast, really loud, and stop well. So they vetted the car for me. I picked it up, drove it back from Monterey, and then had my buddy Matt Bound do my Brumos inspired paint livery, flat black on the hood, and then the Brumos inspired stripes. Other than that, I actually haven't done anything to the car. The car drives awesome. It's, you know, this is for me the ultimate evolution of the air-cooled car in this format. Still light, still nimble, still feels like a scalpel, accelerates. It's got enough power. I mean, today, compared to the newer generation GT3s, this car looks a little bit like a narrow-bodied baby because it is a narrow-bodied car. You know, it's an engaging drive. It's an exciting drive, and that's why I love my '04 GT3. Covers all the sensors and does everything that a Porsche should do, gets you involved and makes you want to drive it even more. So, told you the story about when I was looking for the Gen 1 996 Aero Kit car. Now I'm a motivated collector. Whatever I set my mind to, I generally find. I've done that with everything from a 64 911 through a 75 Turbo. But today we're just talking about water-cooled cars, Vasica-cooled. We'll leave all this air-cooled stuff for the cool kids, and we'll get back to that later. So, we come here, Gen 1 996. Interestingly, you cannot have a conversation with any Porsche file about a 996 when they don't talk about two things: ugly headlights and IMS bearing failure issues. Truth be told, I don't care about any of those things. I don't necessarily seek other people's opinions on what I should think either. But what I will say is, for me personally, if you come around here, I actually prefer the Gen 1 headlights. No one ever says a bad word about these style headlights when they're on a GT1. It's a little bit like air-cooled guys. No one ever says a bad word about mag case engines when it's on a 73 RS Carrera. But you got a 74, everyone will tell you how bad those mag case engine cases are. But they don't worry about it on a 73 RS. They don't worry about these headlights on a GT1, as you correctly pointed out. So 1999, one of my favorites. Looks awesome in red. I acquired this car about a year ago. So let's move on to the most recent acquisition for me in the water-cooled Porsche arena. And it's this car right here. If Darth Vader drove a 996, it could possibly be this 2002 996 GT2. It's a lifelong California car. I'm the third owner. It's never been out of LA. The interesting thing about this car is I had a couple of buddies that had 996 GT2s, but when they came time to selling them, they were asking all the money in the world because they had relatively low mile examples, 20,000, 25,000 miles. The great thing about this was it has 90,000 miles on it, but it also has $50,000 worth of receipts from the prior owner who used it as his daily driver car. So what that meant was the car needed nothing, had actually been well maintained, and was a fraction of the cost of a lesser mild GT2. Seems like most people out there that are looking for 996 GT2s want low mile examples. For me, I took advantage of one that had been extremely well maintained at a fraction of the price, which was mechanically sound. You know, it drove just as good, if not better, than my buddies who had the same car with basically a quarter or a third of the miles on it. So, another interesting point, 2002, this was a king of the hill, the holy grail, the top of Porsche's performance arc. But I will say by today's standards in 2020, you can get a Carrera S 992, you know, the turbo, non-turbo, because Porsche won't put a turbo badge on there, but we all know it's a turbo. So Carrera S, you can get in two-wheel drive manual with about the same horsepower as the 2002 GT2. So for me though, it's an engaging car to drive. It's a great GT touring car. It's interesting to drive the GT2 and the GT3 back to back. You know, it's different characteristics. A couple of weeks ago, I had a couple of buddies in from out of town. We went for a drive up the crest. We pulled out the GT2, the GT3, and the 993, and we swapped around. And the GT3, maybe it's more chiseled. It definitely revs higher. Maybe it feels a little more edgy. The GT2, though, it packs a wallop when that boost comes on. It's a little bit softer than the GT3, but I'm all about variety, so I'm happy to have Gen 1, Gen 2, and GT2, GT3. So that's my water-cooled story. Like I always say when it comes to Porsche and 911, just like life, we need air and water to survive. So.